The crisis in Nigeria's main opposition party, People's Democratic Party, continues to take various dimensions. First, the Supreme Court of Nigeria's judgment reservation in the appeal filed by embattled Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Samuel Anyanwu, challenging his removal from office. Anyanwu, in his appeal, seeks to overturn the judgment of the Court of Appeal, Enugu, which upheld the December 20, 2024 verdict of the Federal High Court removing him as PDP National Secretary. Also still making the rounds is the recommendation of the National Disciplinary Committee, NDC, of the PDP for the expulsion of Samuel Anyanwu, the embattled Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. In another development, acting National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Ambassador Umar Damagum, yesterday alleged mischief by some highly placed persons to force him out of office. Damagum said the plot entailed a rumor that he had resigned. He denied quitting and he warned that the brains behind the rumor to desist from this rumor. So joining us now on the show as we look at what obtains in the party ahead of the Court of Appeal, Court of Judgment and other issues is Mark Jacobs, former legal advisor of the People's Democratic Party, joining us all the way from the lovely city of Kaduna. Great to have you, sir, on the show. Like I asked a PDP representative, in a scenario where Samuel Anyanwu wins the Supreme Court judgment, what will the PDP do? Will the PDP be in disarray like, Mr. Kola Olagbondiyan did say, or you guys will mend fences and move on? Secondly, is this the beginning of the end of the PDP with the dichotomy going on in the party? Because apart from the numerous issues we enunciated in our initial script, there's also the issue of the Congress that happened, the South-South Congress, which equally shows that there's a division, like a seismic shift, cutting through the ranks of the PDP as we speak. So number one, if Samuel Anyanwu wins and is affirmed at the Supreme Court, that's the scenario, what will the PDP do? Two, talk to me about, the South-South Congress.
Well, let me start with the first question, which has to do with the case involving Anyanwu in the Supreme Court. Personally, I have not seen anyone, either a politician or otherwise, who has taken the judiciary for a ride like Senator Samuel Anyanwu has done. Nobody in our records has attempted to ridicule the judiciary the way Senator Anyanwu has done. If you recall, this case started in the High Court of Enugu State. When the judgment was given, he rushed to another High Court and obtained a counter order insisting on remaining as secretary. The matter went upstairs. He appealed to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal ruled against him and gave a very sound judgment. Instead of complying with that judgment, Samuel Anyanwu has run to and fro several courts. He started from the Court of Appeal itself, asking the Court of Appeal to stay execution of his judgment. That order was not granted. He rushed back to another High Court with a different suit, with different applications, but very clearly seeking to stay the execution of the judgment.
Okay, we'll take a quick breather. We'll come back. We'll fix whatever might be the issue. We'll be right back. All right, let's go straight to it. We still have Mark Jacob, former legal advisor of People's Democratic Party. Sir, if you can hear me, you can just continue with the point you were trying to make.
Okay, I was just saying that to the best of my knowledge, there's no politician that has taken the judiciary for a very big wild goose ride like Anyanwu has done, has enjoyed over the last few months. All the courts that he has traveled to have given judgment against him, and he has refused to comply with all the judgments. It started from the High Court, went to the Court of Appeal. He wanted a stay of execution. That was not granted. He rushed to a federal high court in Abuja and was seeking the same stay of execution using another case. Luckily, this time around, the court refused to grant him that application, insisting that he should put the other parties on notice. I think the matter was adjourned to this week or next week. He still went to the Supreme Court and filed the same application, seeking a stay of execution of the judgment of the Court of Appeal. And for me, that is the height of abuse of court process, because every lawyer, at least what is told, knows that when there is a declaratory judgment, you don't go looking for stay of execution. And I feel sorry for him. Probably his lawyers have refused to be very frank with him, or he has also refused to listen to his lawyers, because these are elementary issues that senior lawyers, particularly the ones representing him, should know. That you don't go about filing spurious applications left, right, and center because you don't want to comply with the judgment of a court, a valid judgment of the Court of Appeal, not a small area court somewhere. No, the Court of Appeal. So for me, Anyanwu has enjoyed a lot of leeway. He has had his way all the way, toying with the judiciary and making it, exposing the judges to ridicule by refusing to comply with the simple letters of the judgment. And that is correctly, that is wrong. It should never be condoned, and no lawyer should be found supporting that kind of behavior. Yes, the judgment of the Supreme Court will soon be delivered on a date that they will announce. But while that is pending, all parties are bound to obey the orders of the Court of Appeal. It's been reported all over the news that Mr. Anyanwu refused to vacate office. Mr. Anyanwu had his boys barricade and threaten people with violence, refusing to allow people to access the office, and so on. This is the height of irresponsibility on anybody at all who is depending on the courts to protect his rights. You must be seen to be willing to obey court orders if you want the courts to also give you judgment. So while we wait for the Supreme Court, it is very clear that Samuel Anyanwu is not interested in obeying court orders, especially if they do not answer his question and the orders are not in tandem with his personal desire. And that is wrong. No nation will survive under such a situation. The second issue you raised about the divisions in the South-South, these are all issues that are connected to irresponsibility on the part of politicians, because you cannot impose yourself. Everybody ought to be very careful when running these issues of political leadership. Nobody ought to be found imposing himself on anyone. And the leadership of the party, particularly the NWC, has a duty, and they have made their position clear, that they have not conducted any elections for the South-South. So people grandstanding and insisting that they will impose themselves or they will elect themselves, go to a venue that is unknown to the NWC, a venue that has no attendance of officers of the National Working Committee, because everybody in this party knows that when there are going to be congresses, the committee that conducts such congresses comes from the national. It's not a state affair, it's not a zonal affair. The congresses of any zone or state are conducted by the national, using committees set up by the National Working Committee, authorized by NEC. So when a person or a group of persons elect themselves and decide that they are going to have congresses with or without the National Working Committee, it's an aberration. Certainly, that should not stand. Nobody should allow that to happen.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jacob. And we await the ruling of the Supreme Court, like you mentioned. At the end of the day, they would be the one to determine the fate of both men in this instance, and also the PDP, because I recall when we had a guest last week, he talked about the fact that if Senator Sam Anyanwu emerges, then it might just be the beginning of the end of the PDP. But I want to ask a question related, but not exactly directly. With all these distractions in the PDP, would you say it has hampered their powers or efficiencies as as a viable opposition party? Because since this administration came into power in 2023, it's been from one issue to another, one court case to another, infighting, so that you're not even able to really take position as opposition in this particular administration. How do we move away from that? Because it's weakening the structures of the PDP, if you'd agree with me.
Certainly, the situation we are faced with is embarrassing, is unacceptable, it's not correct. And I know, and I can say with every sense of responsibility, that our courts do not go shopping for cases. It is members of the party that take these cases to the courts. And it's so embarrassing that members of my profession are also involved, because no politician goes to court without consulting a lawyer. But we all know the elementary position set and settled by the Supreme Court, that the issues of leadership of political parties are certainly no-go areas for the courts. They are no-go areas. It's a no-go area for the courts. Unfortunately, despite the Supreme Court decisions and Court of Appeal, you find lawyers under instruction from politicians taking these issues to the courts. And this is where we have a problem. We know the permanent and the real position of the courts. The courts do not want, and they do not go shopping for cases. It is politicians, members of the PDP, that take these cases to the courts. And I feel sad with what is happening, because, yes, Nigeria is lacking a viable opposition party, because the only party that has that capacity has bedeviled itself with in-house wars, unnecessary in-house battles that are founded on personal egos and interests, which is a big embarrassment and a big shame to all of us that are members of the party. It should not be like that. The interests of the country, the interests of the millions of members of the party scattered all over the country should supersede our personal interests, our personal agenda, and take prime position far away from the kind of things that are happening. But what do we find today? We find people, because of personal interest, making sure that the party does not survive, the party does not see the light at the end of any tunnel. We have very spurious troubles here and there, troubles that ought not to be found, troubles that are supposed to be handled and settled internally. People rush to court. And you can see it. It is very clear that at the end of the day, the courts will still maintain that they do not have jurisdiction to determine who is going to be a leader of any political party. But before that is done, the courts would have, the time would have been wasted, all the time that ought to be committed to making sure the country is run properly by the opposition party, all that time would have been lost.
So let's talk about that, especially when you're talking about individuals versus the greater good for the party. Because my question to you is the PDP ready for the fallout? We've already seen the Tommy Kimi-led disciplinary committee saying that Senator Anyanwu should be expelled from the party completely. Are you prepared for the fallout from that? We already saw the scenes that took place just a few days ago when Senator Anyanwu's aide there was a violent outburst because he was trying to block the meeting or attend the meeting. There are so many different narratives to what happened. That's number one fallout. The second fallout is the fact that there's an election coming up in November in Anambra State, and reports are saying many people are not coming forward with their 40 million to register themselves and express their interest as candidates because the party is in disarray. So as things look now, November is just a few months down the line. It seems the PDP is even struggling to have people who are interested in running on the ticket of the party. So my question is, are you ready for the fallout of all of this fight against Senator Anyanwu?
as far as I'm concerned, because it is his own people, his zone, that sat down in the Southeast Congress, the caucus made up of the governors from that area, the senators, members of the national and state assemblies, that sat down and removed him. They sat down and in line with the constitution of the party said, since you left, you resigned from your position of secretary and came to contest the primaries, and in fact became the candidate of the party, you ought to relinquish the position of secretary. You ought to live by the dictates of the constitution. You can't hold two positions. Now, when they sat down and took that decision, it is shocking that one person refused to obey the decision of the whole, and that is Senator Anyanwu. So it is a local issue, because if he had obeyed the dictates and the decision of his own constituency, there will be no problem at all. And it's not a national issue as far as I'm concerned. He is holding onto that office depending solely on a court order that he obtained, a high court order that said he should remain. Meanwhile, we have a court of appeal decision now saying, get out of that office. You are not entitled to be there. Now he refused and is engaging in self-help. Nobody has a monopoly of rascality. But you see, people refuse to become rascal like his aide. Otherwise, if other people had mobilized their own thugs to go there, that guy that tried to do that physical violence would have been taken over. But people maintained themselves and told him to allow the meeting to hold. And of course, the meeting held at the end of the day. Nobody joined forces with him. But I'm saying that Anyawu's issue is a very local thing. The people of the Southeast are entitled to have the representation that they want. The governors from that region, former governors, members of the National Assembly, you cannot impose yourself. That is the impunity that the politicians continue to showcase, which is wrong. You cannot, and you should not be seen imposing yourself on the people. So there is really nothing like a fallout. Besides his aides and his boys that are ready to cause havoc left, right, and center, nobody in the Southeast who took part in taking that decision will be ready to follow Anyanwu. Nobody.
Okay. I'd like to ask you this. In all of this back and forth with the Anyanwu case, the arguments that the opposing side, the side in support of Anyanwu, have made constantly here is that there is nothing in the PDP constitution that stops somebody that tried to go run for governor and failed to come back to his position. What do you say to these arguments? And can you also speak to me about Damagun saying that there have been some people that want to remove him?
Let me start from the Damagun case. For me, Damagun is an acting chairman. Damagun is also the representative of the Northeast in the NWC. So he is not holding the position of chairman as a substantive chairman. So the sit-tight approach that he may have is wrong. An acting capacity ought not to be an acting forever. You ought to vacate that office as soon as possible. Probably he's still in that seat because the North Central has not put its act together to reclaim its position, because the position rightly belongs to the North Central, who occupied the seat through IU. When IU moved out, the Constitution clearly provides that a person from that zone should take over. So that Damagun is acting is sufficient information and procedure is there. We have seen it done several times where somebody either dies or resigns or decamps. A person from his constituency or from his zone is brought to replace him. So that is a settled issue. So today, nobody should be or is struggling to remove him from office. Rather, the parameters for him to vacate the office and go back to his normal position has not been fulfilled. And that is to have the North Central demand the return of the office to their zone. It's not a position that he should hold in perpetuity. You cannot be acting forever. It's just like suspending somebody. You can't suspend somebody forever or for an endless time. Acting capacity is a temporary thing, and it ought to have expired by now. And like I said, it's only because the North Central Zone or the party have not put their act together to reclaim the position. Otherwise, Damagum ought not to be in that office up to today. Now, what was the other issue you even asked?
So I said the argument they normally make from the Anyanwu camp is that is there anything stopping a member that had gone to run for governor but wasn't successful to come back and just rightfully assume his position?
There is. There is. Section 47 is very clear.
Can you read it out to us?
Yes.
Because that's the argument the opposing part always
I wish
makes.
I had it here.
Section 47. Go ahead and tell us how Section 47.
The wordings of Section 47 is very clear. They are, in fact, the word there used to be shall, but they say the person may resign his position. It is talking about the mode of resignation. It's not that you cannot, you will not resign. No, the wordings are clear that you may resign his position by doing so and so. But they have continued to interpret it to mean a discretionary thing. The standard practice, and that is how law works. Once you have formed a standard, you have continued to practice it in a particular way. You cannot come and run away from it because of one person. Everybody in this party that has gone out to contest election has never returned. The situation Anyanwu is creating today is a very peculiar situation. And everybody knows that even at the state level, before the contest of an election, people are notified to resign. You must resign, and your resignation must be tendered together with your form, your nomination form. So the screening committee comes and screens you and takes note of all those requirements. You cannot contest without resigning. And Anyanwu resigned. So a situation where today you want to say you went, contested, lost, and then you come back, what will happen to your resignation letter? So these are the issues that people are taking advantage of because they see words, some words in the Constitution. They want to take advantage of some interpretation that is weird. But everybody who has resigned from the party leadership to go and contest election does not come back to take his position. It is a very settled matter. The tradition.
Oh, I think we've developed that problem again. Maybe we'll go for a quick breather, but at this point in time, we'll just have to wrap things up. But thank you so much, Mr. Mark Jacob, for telling us more as regards this PDP conundrum.